perfect. Yep.
Thank you.
That's one. Yep, perfect.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. The only thing with this is I can't see if anyone else comes online, so I hopefully everyone is online that needs to be online. Oh no, and I've also, if no one noticed it, I've also opened up the wrong PowerPoint. It tells me I can't minimize when I'm annoying. Just hope I don't cut everyone off. This one's better.
We'll hear you, but you won't be able to see us.
Yeah. Okay, I think I've got the wrong date on the start, but anyway, that's okay. Here we go. Go back to share screen. Well, it's so much easier when you're not controlling it and operating it. Okay, can you see that? Can you see my, about the opus, starting off with the opus?
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic, great. So we'll start off. So as we all know, the conference has been cancelled for 2021. And just regarding the refunds, so most of the refunds have been done. So there's about 3 or 4 which apparently are left to go. And what they've done is, I think they've sent an email to people, and then people have come back and said, yes, that's the correct address, that's the correct bank account, and then they've made sure the money's gone into that. They've also done one transfer to Manawa 2, and the rest of it we transferred over. But for those people that are having their money transferred over, they will send an email to those individuals and tell them that their money has been transferred over from the Wellington property investors to the Manawa 2 property investors.
Yeah, we did 60,000 today, and with on the refunds we just give we gave $10 first, and then people confirm their accounts and then put the rest in, just to make sure we didn't get any bad accounts. Perfect,
that's cool, that's great, thanks Peter. The AGM, as we know, was held in mid-October. The notion to increase the capitation from $57.50 to $60 per member was passed, so thank you everyone for supporting that. And just remember to remind your committee that this has happened, because they may want to increase their subs for the coming year. So healthy homes important dates, really good to keep reinforcing this to people. Most people I know have started doing it. I was talking to a couple of real estate agents today, and they've got about 60%, this is in Waikato, they've got about 60% of their property owners have done their properties, but it's still quite a few to go by 2023, which we need to have them completed by. So just keep reminding people that they need to get onto it. And I would say too, with all the shortages and the of course the difficulty in getting people to do the work at the moment, getting builders, getting plumbers, electricians, that type of thing, it might be worth getting onto this sooner rather than later. So we've asked recently for a healthy homes extension for those people in lockdown. So we said, because of the fact that you can't get a tradesperson, you can't get someone to enter the house, and supplies are short, is it possible to have something in writing to extend the healthy homes deadlines, which is the 90 days? Poto Williams virtually said to us that at the moment they're very, very busy and it's not really priority. So I think they're just going to wait until it, yeah, it sort of happens. I've got another PowerPoint too that I'll go on a little bit about this, but yeah, it's unusual that they aren't doing anything. And I've reiterated to them that property investors don't like being criminals, and this really is making us a criminal, because you've got 90 days to get it done. And the stress, I said, for some people, just remember that, you know, we know that a lot of people are mum and dad investors and they only own 1 or 2 properties. So for them, the stress of knowing their property is illegal is quite a lot, as well as lockdown and everything else. So they won't put anything on paper. I think they're just going to let it slide. That's not to say, though, that the tenants will let it slide. So we'll just have to wait. And if anyone hears of any cases that get sent to the tenancy tribunal for not being able to meets the 90 days that they have for the healthy homes, can they let me know, and I'll see what we can do from our end. So the RTA, they did the changes, as we know, in August last year, February this year, and the next one that was coming through was supposed to be in August this year, and that was for the family violence and physical assault of the landlord. That's now been pushed out to mid-2022. That's also due to, so they've told me it's due to being pulled off their normal jobs, and they're now having to work on COVID legislation. I don't know if it is really. I think it's more likely they don't have the systems or the know-how to actually how to do that. So that's been pushed out to mid-2022. I didn't go through.
Oh, I was right on that count then, wasn't I?
You were, Glenn. Yeah. I don't think the last time I went through the interest deductibility rules, this is after the final ones, because last month we didn't have a meeting due to the AGM. So 29th December, they released details that came into effect on 1st of October. It was really good, I think. You know, what's that, a couple of days? Very good of them. But if you want to, you can go through these PowerPoints with your associations. So what's excluded? Main house, farmhouse, certain Maori land, emergency transitional social council housing. I'll go through that a little bit more. Commercial accommodation, care facilities, employee accommodation. So that's more like farmland as well, or orchardists or things like that. Student accommodation and land outside NZ. So previously denied deductions may be available in residential properties sold if the sale is taxable. So if you're being taxed on the bright line, although the deduction it may be limited to the gain on sale. So they're not going to tax you on the two things. They're not going to tax you on tax deductibility and the bright line. They'll choose one, but it'll be up to the accountants, I think, that will do that. And I'm guessing that there'll be some sort of legislation or something coming through for accountants. I don't know whether they do standard operating procedures or whatever on that, so then they'd know exactly how to do that. Emergency and transitional social and council housing. So this we know is exempt from these rules, but what we're finding is that they've increased the amount of money they can spend. $339 million they've spent on social and transitional housing. But what it does mean is those tenants that are in that middle bracket are now going to fall into the social housing. I think that's what they want to do, actually, is to get everyone, pull everyone down. And Kiongora houses are exempt, tax exempt. So short-term accommodation, they're trying to get people out of doing Airbnb and moving them into long-term accommodation. So therefore, they're going to be treated as if they were a long-term accommodation premises. Tax deductibility, so we know this, but you could go through it again and just tell your members the IRD and the Treasury didn't agree with the changes. The IRD opposed the changes and wanted to leave the status quo. Treasury never had enough time to do a regulatory, someone else has just come in, so I'll just set them in. Treasury never had enough time to do a regulatory impact assessment. Legislation has been written and they've implemented it on the 1st of October. So as I said, it was 2 days or something. And they have just asked for more submissions on some of the latest things, which just things that they needed to clarify, which is very unusual considering it's already in law on the 1st of October. So what should you do? I keep reiterating to people, make sure your rents are at current market rent. Use the NZPIF tracker or use Trade Me. So look on Trade Me and see what they are. Don't use the data. I received it today, the tenancy services data. Don't use that for working out what your rent should be. Make sure you take a copy of it and talk to your accountant, or even talk to property managers. Ask a property manager to go around and give you a rental assessment. I think we've got to the stage now that we can't under rent a property. If they decide to bring in, they've said that they won't bring any sort of rent freeze in, but if they decide that they're only going to put it, maybe not a freeze, but set it to consumer price index or something like that, CPI, then if you're not at market level when you start, you've got a long way to catch up and you'll never be able to catch up. So you'll need to get those rents up to the market rent, whatever the market rent is in your area. So we know that the opportunities that they've done in this is there's less competition. So you need to wait 4 years for rents, we think, to increase. Although I do see that a lot of the rents, and especially like Hawke's Bay where I am, rents are still going up. Restructure finance, increase the cash flows to do things to your houses to make them better. Build new rentals. So we know that they're trying to push everyone to build new rentals and form joint ventures. So I've heard of a few people actually doing joint ventures at the moment. It's probably a good way of getting into the industry if you're not in it, especially younger people. And even for those that have been quite established, if you need to move on to something else, there might be something that gives you a higher return than anything else. So
That's just Tash here.
Hi, Tash.
You mentioned just your previous slide not to use the tenancy services data. What's that about?
Okay, so don't use the tenancy services data because they do it over 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So what they do is they amortize it over 6 months. And if you're in an area like Hawke's Bay that's taking off, if you work out amortizing for 6 months, you're already 3 months late or 3 months behind on what your rent should be. If you've got a market that's going down, it might be a good idea to use it, but otherwise I wouldn't.
Yeah, I've had some property managers tell me this is what the data is telling us you should get for a property, and I've rented for over $140 a week more.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, it was advertised for 2 weeks. It was rented out $140 above what the property managers were recommending.
Yeah, yeah. Were they doing it to secure you as a client? Do you think?
No, so I've got a few property managers.
Okay.
I had 3 different rental appraisals.
Yeah.
They were all between $220 and $250, and I rented them for $340 and $380
Wow.
for a 1-bed in Timaru.
Wow, that's good, isn't it?
Whereabouts are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Timaru.
Okay. I'm a property manager in Wellington, so I do use a number of things to do appraisals. Obviously, I do look at the tenancy services information just to get a bit of an idea, but Trade Me and there's nothing better than actually going to have a look at a property and see it with your own eyes, because every property is so different, so you should, hopefully your property managers are actually looking at the property, going up there and visiting it.
I've changed property manager now.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What gets me is when you try and put your rent up, you have to give 2 months notice. So you're trying to anticipate what the market rent will be in 2 months' time.
Yeah.
More tricky.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So the bright line test increase from 5 to 10 years, so excludes new builds. So when they've done the definition of a new build, it's something that's got the code of compliance after the 27th of March 2020. So that's last year rather than this year, which is a bit unusual, but they've decided to do it. I heard one of the talk groups say, Talking Opus actually were talking about it, and they said that they promoted this. They wanted to make it back to March 2020 because it capulated a lot of their builds. And they were lucky enough by the looks to get that through, which is very unusual they've done it, because normally when they set a law, they make it on that day. So anyway, they've managed to get it through. So good on them, and good on those people that have got a house that's been finished in the last year, because it's not often that they retrospectively give you something as a bonus. Normally it's the other way around. So it applies to property acquired on or after the 27th of March 2021. The main home and inherited homes we know are exempt. Taxes paid on your income tax rates, so up to 39%. And this they passed on that bill straight away. That was actually that day that they did that. So you need to look at when the property is acquired. You can go through these details with your audience. So new builds are subject to 5 years. It's on the 5 years also. It's 10 years for anything purchased on or after 27th of March. It's 5 years for something purchased between 29th of March 2018 and 26th of March 2021. And between 1st of October 2015 and 28th of March 2018, if it's sold within the 2-year bright line period. So you've got the different periods there for bright line. They just keep adding to it, don't they? Treasury wanted to extend this to 20 years. They never had time to work out the difference between a 5 and 10 years. Fiscal gain, I've talked about this before, was 650 million with the 10 years, so that's quite a lot of money. They expect the rents to rise. So Treasury know that rents are going to rise here. The IRD opposed the 10 years. IRD wanted 5 years for new builds. Treasury wanted 20 years for new builds. And both were worried about the lock-in effect, which I've talked about before, but on the last Zoom meeting we had, there's not as many people, so we'll go through that. So what the lock-in effect means is that if you've got a property and let's say it's in an area where a lot of people are taking down the old houses and they're building units, they're doing blocks of units and things like that. So the lock-in effect is when you get to about 8 years and you hold on to it for those extra 2 years rather than developing it or rather than selling it so someone else can develop it. So they are really worried about that. It may mean that in a few years' time they actually relook at it and they may give, I don't know, there may be some sort of compensation there, but personally, if the economy starts turning, they may even look at reducing it back down again just to stimulate things. I don't know. You can't tell with this government anyway, though, can you? I'd just be guessing. So the things I've learned this month, so virtual inspections are not approved by the Insurance Council. So if you've got, in Auckland they're doing it at the moment, in Hamilton they've been doing it. So they call it a tenant assisted inspection. So they get the tenant actually to go around and take the photos for them. As far as the Insurance Council are concerned, that is not an inspection. Someone has to physically go there, and apparently it's because your senses smell. So you can smell if something's not right, whereas the tenant that's living there may not be able to smell it. I talked about before the healthy home. So the compliance and investigation team, I've spoken to them a couple of times lately, and they said that they won't penalise people who've made a conscious effort to bring their houses to comply up to the healthy home standards. So if you show that you've actually gone out, you've ordered a heat pump, even though it's not here, if you've booked in your plumber, that type of thing, just show everything. So whether that means you have to do it by text message rather than phoning, or whether you keep a diary and say that you phoned him this date and he's told you what date he's coming. But I would try and get it on paper, I think is always better. So maybe a text message saying, just confirming if we're out of lockdown, you said that you can put in the heat pump on such and such a date. At least then you've got it in writing, but you can change that later on. There's another website which I said last time about Aratohu, which is a tenant advocacy website, and it just goes through basic information, both for tenants and landlords. It's more tenant friendly, but it is quite interesting to look at. It tells your tenants actually to do a reference check on their landlords. So to work out what sort of groups, social groups your landlord's into and things like that, which is very unusual, but it's worth having a look at. So the things I've learnt this month. So we had, in Hawke's Bay, we had Chris Lane come and talk to us last month, and he said that it's virtually impossible now for middle units to get individual insurance, even if it's the owner-occupier. So he said some people are going all the way through getting their mortgages done and everything, and then finding out they can't get insurance on the property. There are a couple of options you can do. You can see if you can put them, get the group. So if you've got 4 units in a row, get the group of the 4 owners to go in under one insurance policy. But if you're going to do that, make sure you get something written up by lawyers. Or if it's under a body corporate, normally you're fine because that's covered. If a rental home is rented out to a social housing provider, it's also getting very, very difficult to get insurance at the moment. There's only one company that will do it, and they have had quite a few claims, and they are not willing to take on too many more social housing provider houses. So be really careful if that's the avenue you think you're going to go on. You're going to start going into the social housing providers. You may not be able to get insurance for your properties, which means that it's virtually impossible to get a mortgage. And I talked about before about the family violence policy that's now being delayed. So that's mid-2022. I'm still waiting to hear when the Reserve Bank are asking for the debt to income, the DTI submissions when they're due. They said that they'd bring them out in November, but as yet I haven't seen anything. I'm not too sure. I don't know what's happening there. Privacy Commission, they just released their guidelines yesterday. Can I please ask that if you're from an association and it's this type of policy that comes in, that you send it on to me, because I've been rung 4 times today by a comment that was written that was quoted from one of the other associations, and it's quite different to what the Federation would think. Our thing with the Federation is, I'll go through how they've done it. So what they've done is they have decided to, they can only gather the information that you need. For example, how property owners work is a little bit different. So myself, what I do is I organise a viewing time, and I tell all the tenants to turn up at that time, and I hand them out the application form. And then they fill out the application form and they give it to me. And then I go through and I look at the ones that I think would be the best ones, the best fit for the property, and then I do credit checks and things like that. So the way that this new guidelines have come out is is very different to that, and especially for property managers. So property managers normally get the tenants to fill out the whole application form online, and from that they choose who they're going to show the property to. They can't do that anymore.
Why?
Why is it gone? It's because they're asking too much money from the tenant. Sorry, too much information from the tenant without actually finding out if the house is suitable for the tenant. So the way that it's done now is a 5-step process. So when you're going to show someone the house, and this is property managers, they're only allowed to ask for their name and their phone number, and then say, I'll meet you at the property.
But their definition of a shortlisted applicant for the process of keeping the records for the length of the current or length of the new tenancy plus
That's
2
different.
years
That's member.
Yeah, but now we've got two things, because I do what you've said that property managers currently do. I get the information first and shortlist, then view, so that I only view 2 or 3 people.
Right.
Because otherwise I have to keep all the people's details.
I know. Yeah. So you're not
That's
allowed to do that.
ridiculous.
I know. So that's why when Auckland came out and said, yes, it's great that they've done the system. It's not good. It's going to slow down the whole process. It means that we're going to have more empty houses. We've already got a tight market for rental properties, and it'll just make it tighter.
So when you get 300 people that want to view a property within 24 hours of you listing it, how do you weed through who you're going to show it through? Because I'm not taking 350 people through my property. Not during
this is all
COVID level 2.
guidelines, so it's called a guideline. What you can do though is you can make it very specific on your application form that they do not need to fill in all the required information. All you need for each stage is what's required at that stage. So all they need to give you when they're looking at viewing the property is their contact name and their phone number. That's all, nothing else. And then when you decide yes, they're okay, you would then get more information. Then when you go through to the next stage, which is giving them a tenancy agreement, you can ask for more information. But if you do put a disclaimer on everything, I think you'll be right in covering yourself. Have a read through the legislation though, but it does slow it down enormously. It's a 5 steps, so there's 5 different steps to put it down
Do you
to.
interpret it that you can even ask how many people are applying?
Not at the start.
Because I advertise a 2-bedroom flat with a maximum occupancy of 2, and I have families of 5 apply. And I just say no straight away. Don't waste your and my time.
No.
So how do I do that?
So that's why I think you should, if you are going to go the old way of saying, yes, you want all the details up front, which it definitely saves you time. I mean, it saves you weeks. I think this process will slow it down by 3 or 4 weeks, really.
So what's wrong with your process that you do, Sharon? With them?
So my process is fine, because what I do is I tell them I've got a viewing time. So I say, come for this viewing time, and then I give them the application form. And then on the application form, but you should only ask them on the application form, not everything that you need for the tenancy agreement.
But that's how we need a tenant
I'll
check.
put a disclaimer on it, just put a disclaimer on it. But I spoke to REINZ, and I can't believe they don't think that it's an issue. I think they think that looking at it is not an issue, but their people will not follow it. They will not organise viewings for 50 people at 50 different times, and someone's got to go there and show them through. And then they work out the next step, and then the next step, and it won't work. It just logically will not work.
What we do is we just set we just obviously put the ad up, and we say these are the viewing times, get people to book in. Obviously we've got the software to do that, but then we just send out the application forms to the people. So yeah, we only know their names and phone numbers. And then when the applications come through, we just look at the best ones and choose from there.
Did they send the application form after they looked at the property or before?
It's after, yeah. But generally we'll stay there, we'll do multiple group viewings for about an hour.
Yeah.
So we're maximising our time there.
Yeah, of course, right. Yeah.
What about if you've got a health and safety requirement that you need more detail? Because I mean, there have been cases of estate agents being kidnapped in the UK that have made a viewing with someone, and someone just gives you a false name and a phone number. You've got the phone number. You go along to the viewing, and they do something nasty, and nobody knows who you've been to see or anything.
Yeah, as a PCBU, you have a responsibility.
Yeah. So the way that you could probably get away, or at the moment especially, is putting your, especially if you're running a company, is putting that COVID thing on the door and getting them to scan as they come in.
We don't get that data.
We don't get that data though.
No, but yeah, I'm sure if something happened, they could find it.
Also, there's people with false COVID apps, because I have a boarding house and there's people that have those things.
I
They
know.
go, look, I pretended like I signed in and I really didn't.
Yeah. So as I said before, if you do get asked for a comment like this on the media, please push it towards me that has time to read all the information rather than saying it's a great idea. It's not a great idea. And my computer has just, oh no, here we go. COVID, the hot topic at the moment. So you cannot ask your tenant if they're vaccinated. It is a breach of privacy, of their privacy. There's nothing in that privacy documentation that came through. And if you ask them, it's the same as asking in the marital status. You cannot ask them.
But they ask us if we're vaccinated when we roll
Doing an
planning
inspection.
an inspection.
Yeah, they can't, and they can't stop you from doing an inspection. What you can do is you can, we had quite a heated discussion in Hawke's Bay about this one. What you can do is you can say to them, I'm coming around to do an inspection at 10 o'clock, for example. I'll be there from 10 till 10:30. If you like, you can go and wait outside the property, or you can wait inside if you want to. It's entirely up to you, but just, I always say to people, protect yourself and they can protect themselves. They cannot.
That's not the
stop
case
you
under level 3.
What's that, sorry?
That's not the case under level
No.
3.
Correct, that's right.
And so some of us are still in level 3. So you do need tenant's permission if you are.
Correct, yeah, and your tenant can stop you at level 3, and apparently a lot of them are.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of that's been about the approach. I know personally of a situation where a property manager just emailed the tenant and said, oh, we're coming around in 2 days' time to inspect the property, and didn't talk, and this is under level 3. They didn't ask her permission. They didn't provide any COVID guidelines. She has 2 small children. So I think a lot of it is on approach. And if it's approached appropriately and respectfully, it's not generally a problem.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And you can always ask, as I said, you can ask the tenants to stand outside as well, you know, if it's interfering. I had the fire brigade turn up to my other house, and I asked, actually, it was because it's a 12-foot stud, and I asked them to change or to fix all the smoke alarms. And they came in and they were all wearing masks. And I said to them, do you want me to wear a mask? They said, no, you don't have to, it's your house. And I thought, that's unusual that even the fire brigade is saying that to me, but I wore it just out of respect. So, you know, I just think they're wearing it, I should wear it. So protect yourself, that's all I can say, but you're not allowed to ask and any of your information about whether your tenant has had been vaccinated or not.
What about if they happen to help self-isolate?
So if they're self-isolating, I'm guessing somehow or other you're going to have to get them to write something down on paper to say they are self-isolating, because you'll need something. Let's say if your house burnt down in the meantime, you'd need something that you could go back to the fire brigade or insurance company or whoever and say, this is why you didn't do your inspection at that particular time. So cover yourself. So whether that means, yeah, as I said, just get something in writing, find out why they're self-isolating. If it's 1 or 2 days, that's fine. You can always delay it. I don't think they self-isolate unless they've come in from MIQ, from overseas, and it might be 2 weeks. But otherwise, they're not normally self-isolating for more than 2 or 3 days until they get COVID results.
Yeah, but if they've tested positive and they're self-isolating at home because they've tested positive, it's
so that's fine. So they will have proof that they've got that they've been tested positive. So you'll have that as your witness type thing of why you haven't been able to do your inspections.
But you can't ask them for it.
I'm guessing if a house burnt down, you would be able to ask them, because if you've ever been investigated by an insurance company, believe you me, they ask everything. But yeah, so I'd say you'd be able to get it in that situation, or you could ask the insurance company to get it. So COVID-19 response management measures legislation bill. This came in just the other day. This is very basic, so it's a very, very basic overview. I don't think they're going to implement this. I mean, they shouldn't implement it. They're going to be moving away from what they have done with the complete lockdowns. That's not to say that they can't use this in the traffic light system when that comes in. So the basic overview of this is it can be turned on and off whenever it's required. So due to outbreaks, it can be in a specific area or even just a region. So as a basic type overview, no tenancy in the area terminates. So you cannot terminate a fixed term or a periodic tenancy. A tenant can get to 60 days for rent arrears, which is absolutely enormous. So if they're in lockdown and it's 60 days or longer than that, if it's 3 months, 4 months, and they've got 60 days in rent arrears, they can get to that before you can take it to the tenancy tribunal. Just remember though, the tenancy tribunal are working during this time. Can still terminate due to antisocial behaviour, but it's very, very difficult to do. You still have to get your 3 episodes of antisocial behaviour. A tenant may choose to stay in the property despite you giving notice for them to leave. So if they decide no, they're going to stay, they can stay. What you need to do as a landlord is make sure you tell the new people that are moving in that the property is no longer available. And a tenant who plans to move in but can't due to an existing tenant in the premises must give the landlord 2 days notice, which I just think is a weird thing, because you'd think it would be the landlord would be giving the tenant 2 days notice that they can't move in. But anyway, that's what it says in the legislation, which is a bit weird, but that's very basic. This legislation is about 3 pages long, so that's just a very basic overview. If it does get, if it does come to light that it actually, they bring it in, then I'll go through it in more detail, especially if there's a particular area that need to look at it and to go through that legislation, I can go through it in a lot more detail. So just some of the things we're working on, nothing much here seems to be happening. Commerce Commission cartel behaviour, haven't heard anything about that lately. Healthy homes, specifically the heating tool and heat pumps. Nothing's changed there. RTA changes the 90-day notice. We've brought that up again. Now, I did send an email to Christchurch, and if there's anyone who has an MP, I think everyone who's got a Labour MP sends them some sort of antisocial issue they're having and continually does something about it. I think they might actually do something, because Poto Williams said that's one of the things that a lot of her constituents come to about is the antisocial behaviour and not being able to remove tenants. So if you do have that sort of situation, get onto your Labour MP in your area. Meth standards.
It's pity, isn't it, given that's the huge amount of feedback they received in the first place before they implemented the stupid thing.
I know.
But yeah, anyway.
I know. Meth standards, so nothing's happening on the meth standards front at the moment. They're working on COVID. Insurance Council, same thing, but as I said, with your veteran inspections, just make sure that as soon as you can do physical inspections, you do physical inspections. Property managers licensing, that's been very, very quiet. Debt to income restrictions, details, hopefully that will come out in the next couple of weeks. Interest only loans, Reserve Bank, I see interest rates at the moment are going up like you wouldn't believe. Accommodation supplement and income related rents, still nothing's really come through. I mean, they've got so many other things they're worrying about. Family violence, we've said that that's now been pushed out to mid 2022. SNA, significant natural areas, we still know it's there and it is worth checking with your council. There's actually a really good topic to do is one of your meetings. If you can get someone from the council to come in and talk about what the significant natural areas are. Rental indexing and rental caps, I don't think will happen. Has been mentioned, but I don't think they'll really do anything on those. So any questions and any discussions in the areas on what's happening?
Yeah, we had a talk from CoreLogic on, not this Wednesday, the previous one.
Yeah.
And one of his graphs was particularly interesting because it showed that the rents over the last 10 years or something have been increasing an average rate of 3% a year. And he says this one quarter, it's out right at the end, it's really shot up because of the things. And they've been advising the government that it won't make any difference. That's why I read between the lines. So yeah, there's quite a big jump in rent just at the moment, which is
Is it the shortages? Is that due to shortages of houses, or what's the reason?
Well, I think that it's catch up in a way, because a lot of landlords gave discounts and things like that to their tenants last year.
Yes.
And none of us put our rents up and anything like, because we thought our tenants would having a hard time.
Yes.
And now we're just forced to do it because the legislation is taking all our income.
Yeah.
And so now rents are going up 7% or more. But I mean, the government has just announced they're putting wages for all civil servants, lowest paid, they're going up 10%.
Oh, are they? I didn't hear that.
They're going up, they're all going on to the living wage from the minimum wage, which is a good 10% increase. And they put the minimum wage up by 5% at the beginning of the year. So that's 15% in a year. And if that's not inflationary, I don't know what is.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah. So what's everyone finding in their areas? What's happening? Glenn, what's happening down there?
Well, in Nelson and Tasman, we've got, I just looked at Trade Me today again. We've got 60 vacancies advertised out of 12,000 properties, rental properties. Yeah, like about 10% of most of the other cities. One of the things that I've been working on is the, which you could have mentioned, I think, is the RMA alteration amendment, and which is for intensification, which means about the so you're going to rely permit on tier 1 cities, whereas max 3 properties or 3 dwellings per lot.
Yes.
Three levels, side boundaries 1 metre, rear boundaries 1 metre, view from windows 1 metre. And so that's going to make a huge difference. And then they said, well, any tier 2 cities which have a housing crisis, the ministers can just do an order in council and change that and turn them into an tier 1.
Yeah.
So the face of New Zealand is going to change, which is the only good news that I've actually got out of this government for the last 6 years, because obviously a higher density housing, you know, like covering 60% of the land and everything gives a higher rate of return. So so that's going to be quite a massive change in our world, and I'm sure most of the cities notice it. Apart from Auckland, it's really hard to get a block of flats, you know, through the resource consent process, like basically impossible. So
do you think they'll make it easy though, Glenn, or do you think it'll just be the same? Do you think the councils will make it easier to get this through? I know it's the change in
right, yeah, the tier 2 councils, which is like not the tier 1s are Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga, Wellington and Christchurch,
yeah.
and tier 2 are basically all the other normal sort of cities. And so the council will have no say in it. They've totally removed their ability to actually stop anything. So the 1 year and especially notified consents, that's all been removed. So obviously you still have to have the building built properly with appropriate building consents, proper fire rating. So yeah, so it's going to be a major change, and our cities will look, like
ghettos.
the rest of the world.
Yeah. What's
They
your
won't look like the rest of the world.
What is interesting is that they have also said that if you exceed, that's 3 properties or any of those specs, the council still has to give you resource consent.
yes.
And not allowed to notify it.
Not allowed to notify it, and they have to sign off on building on resource consent.
Yeah, 3 is a minimum. So you can obviously have more, but that has to then have resource consent for that. Or,
if you exceed,
it has to have resource consent, but it's a permitted activity effectively.
Yeah, but the odd thing is that they have removed the need for you still need resource consent to subdivide. So if you build 3 dwellings on a site, so they use the, without being racist, for the whānau and family and student family with it, you're allowed to build these 3 dwellings, but you can't get, if you want to subdivide them and sell them off separately, you have to have resource consent and so on and so on. So it means that suddenly all these properties will be available, really good for property investors, but useless for owner occupiers. And so, and this is going to take 50 years to work it through on brownfield areas.
Yeah.
But also they said it's also going to apply on greenfield. So all the new subdivisions will suddenly look very different than the brownfield areas.
Yeah.
So so we're in for a new world, a new game.
Yeah.
And there are some good things. Obviously, the green type people will not like it, and
those people that like character houses in certain areas, they were the ones that will start complaining as well.
Yeah. But the problem is, like for the Greens, they want to save their productive land,
Yes.
and they can't have it both ways. So whatever.
Yeah. Nikki, what's happening at Taranaki?
Thought of a whole heap of things, and then I was listening, and now I've completely forgotten. That's my brain at the moment. I did actually hear from an electrician on the weekend that you can't buy Tukor and Earth cable. So if you're building and you don't have your cable from basically Wanganui up to Taranaki, then you're not wiring. So I don't know how much truth is in that, or what the story about it was. He was a Wellington electrician travelling through Palmy.
Yeah, that's true. We're having delays in cable.
Yeah.
Too.
I bought the last 2 rolls of 1 mil from my local wholesaler.
Yep, there you go. So if you're building and you get to the wiring stage, then like we're building at the moment, and he told us that, and we're like, oh, we better go and get some now because we're going to wire it ourselves. So yeah.
Jib and timber and all the other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah. So
our house is wired. They couldn't get the cable from the telegraph pole back under the house, under the footpath, back to the box at your boundary. That's what they're out of.
Oh no!
And they've been waiting 3 weeks now.
Wow.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sally, how's things going, Rotorua?
We had problems trying to get a plumber the other day, and okay, you can't get one until
For a month.
for a month. We're in a month's time, we might be able to come around and do an estimate.
Yeah, Hawkeye's the same. Yeah. Sally, what's happening in Rotorua?
Yeah, it's still busy. From the mortgage side of things, we're still busy. I suppose that's probably the biggest. My outlook really at the moment is obviously all just lending and just getting harder and harder to lend people money.
Is it first time buyers or is it
first home buyers? So Kiwi Bank at the moment aren't lending doing anything over 80, even to its own existing clients. ASB are only doing over 80 for existing clients.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just going to be pretty tough, I think, out there for first home buyers for a while. So, and then just with the new CCCFA regulations that have come in, just needing a lot more detailed information for loan applications.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all just a bit hard.
Yeah.
But in terms of house buying and things like that, still lots of activity going on in Rotorua at the moment. Yeah.
Kerry, what's happening with you?
So interestingly, a developer that's come down from Christchurch is selling off a few of his undeveloped sites, which I found quite interesting, for about 100K more than he paid for them, which is fine. But yeah, rents, so houses, well, I've got a block of flats, and the 1-beds that were rented at 180, I've got people looking to take them at 300 a week.
It's huge.
And yeah, a flat that was 260 is now going to be 350. And that's through Ministry of Social Development. So rents are skyrocketing here. So prices have been going up for a little while, and now the rents are starting to catch up.
Yeah. Joanna, Alistair, what's happening in Manawatu?
I don't know. I think it's pretty quiet, isn't it?
I think it's pretty quiet. A lot of our members have sold off all their shitters, they say, and are hunkering down.
Yeah. Natasha, what's happening in Waikato? If you can speak.
We'll see how we go. We're in lockdown, so we haven't been able to run our events. We ran a Zoom session last night for our members just to keep the conversations going, and it was just about renovations and struggles people are having with where they've got finished kitchens and no bench tops, and like you said, washers they can't find, or just random little things that you can't get hold of. So it was a bit of a discussion around plans A, B, C and D if you happen to be renovating. Property market's still insane. Silly money still being paid for things, and the rental market's still very tight, but there is starting to be a bit of a differentiation where if you've got a crap house, then it's going to get harder. Oops, sorry. It's going to get harder to rent, so people are becoming a bit more picky, I guess, because they're paying a higher price. So lots going on, and people renovating, I think, quite a lot, and new builds are all over the place, heaps of things being ripped off and lots of new builds going up, so it's busy.
Yeah. And Wellington?
So you had a meeting last night, had Williams Corp actually present, and also Niall from Copo, property manager, so that Tony works with. So it was interesting, a different form of I guess investing with Williams Corp, 10% return on your money. They're targeting 500 houses next year. No, so what we're seeing here is not dissimilar. I mean, everything's gone up 30%, and now another 30% on that 30%. And you can't find anything for love nor money. There's, the sales stats are being skewed because we're finding now a lot of properties actually just coming off the market. They can't sell. There's no offers, and those are generally, potentially investment stock. A lot more home and incomes. We had no home and incomes for quite some time in Wellington. Now there's a lot on the market, and they're not selling because it's second-hand stock. So they come off the market, so you don't actually get the true indication of the sales stats. And I mean, vendors' expectations are still high. They're still wanting sub 5, actually below 5 thereafter. The market's probably above 6 now for yields, and there's a big gap there. So it's that time in the cycle where there's a dichotomy between selling and buying. But first, there's still good demand for other types of properties, and they're still going at really good numbers. So more on the market now though. That's the summary. More on the market, and a lot not being sold and coming off the market.
Yeah. Tanya, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I can attest with the new builds. So we've had a lot more rentals coming through for new builds, which has been great because that's what the market is wanting. I think, like Natasha was saying before, that people are being a lot more choosy about what they're renting. And we saw that probably about a month and a half ago when we started seeing a few more people looking to rent properties, and those properties that we had that landlords weren't prepared to do the work to get it at a reasonable level were taking a lot longer to get across the line. So I think now for investors that want to get premium money, they need to put that money into to get the punters in, because there's a lot more choice. And if you've got an older property and then you're getting the market flooded with a lot of new properties, then people are going to pay that little bit extra to get a brand new property. So we've had a lot of success with Williams Corporation. We've got quite a good relationship with them, and they've been going super fast. So it just proves at the end of the day, if you're wanting to get your property rented, you need to do that continual maintenance to keep it valid and updated. So
Thanks.
But it's getting quite busy.
Tim, what's happening down in Wairaka?
Well, it's interesting just hearing what's going on in Wellington, because we've got a home and income for sale there, and 4 properties at Tommy's got passed in at tender today with no offers. No offers came in at any of them, and they're all second-hand stock.
Hawke's Bay's the same. Hawke's Bay, one of the agents had 8 properties open homes in the weekend, and 6 of them had no one there looking.
So I was diving a bit deeper there, and I just said, there's quite a few people looking, but they just said that they get becoming really picky, and for the the home buyer, let's say, their finance is becoming so tight, real tight. So, yeah, I think things are turning pretty quick. So
Yeah.
watch the space.
Yeah,
But
I think
and the wire
finance
wrapper
is
things are
right.
good. And the wire wrapper things are looking pretty good. And yeah, real shortage of rentals. So if something comes up for rent, it gets snapped up real quick. So and rents are going up pretty quick. So.
Yeah.
I think BNZ, the DTI they're introduced is only being applied through mortgage brokers. I read today. I find that astounding.
Oh, is that? I didn't know that.
No, so well, I'm not sure. It was on interest.co.nz. I'm not sure how accurate they were, but the BNZ came across as really obstinate and yeah, they should. Yeah, as they're saying that they don't have to apply it internally. It's only being applied for the 6 times DTI, and then investors it's 80% of the rent as well. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Kit, sorry, were you waiting in the waiting room for quite a while?
Yes, I just emailed Jen to apology.
No, she's not here. I'm Jen tonight. But
yeah, I noticed that.
As well as checking it all the time.
So sorry for that. Yeah, missed a bit of the conversation. Yeah. But from Christchurch, probably also demands on rent continue to be quite strong. The house prices, so it's quite a good buoyant market, and so nothing specific to reporting there. I think from the CPIA itself, the membership stays stable still at the moment, but I'm actually quite curious. Is any one of you noticing anything in the membership? Do they want more information, or are some, with all those changing rules, is it taking an impact on membership? And how did we end up with perhaps strategies to increase membership?
So when we looked at the for the AGM for the last 12 months, and that finished our financial, I think the Federation's financial year was June, we were actually up 217 from the year before, which is good.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. As a whole, the whole country. There doesn't seem to be very much slipping. We've got our next meeting in a couple of weeks, so I'll just keep an eye on that, but doesn't seem to be.
Waikato's losing people quite quickly.
Yeah, but I think Waikato's a bit like Hawke's Bay. So Hawke's Bay's losing, and the reason Hawke's Bay's losing is we've got a really an older age demographic, and we always have for property investors, and those people are deciding it's too hard now. They don't need the money. They just sell up and go to their retirement, and just when they can travel, they'll travel. So they're not too worried about it. They're not handing it over to the children, that type of thing. So that seems to be our thing. And I think, Natasha, you do have quite an older membership base there.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure how without surveying what we've got left, it's hard to say that it's one particular area or it's not. I just haven't seen numbers drop this quickly, and it's very hard to get traction to bring them back when you're stuck in lockdown and you can't offer the same kind of services. So we're on a big marketing mission right now with some outside help to try and see if we can't turn that around. We're hopeful that we can and reach out to a different group of people. Maybe we'll try some stuff. We'll see what happens.
Hawke's Bay, we were bringing every single person that hadn't renewed. Yeah, and a lot of people said they never received their emails because of the way that it sends through the emails from PIMS. A lot of people said, "Oh, if you send me the invoice, I'll pay," and they all have. So we've had I don't know how many it was. It might be 11 or something have joined in the last couple of months that have just dropped off, and that's only because we rang them and said, we noticed that you're not a member. How can we improve that? Oh, no, I just haven't paid. So you send it through, and most of the time they are paying. So maybe even just going back and checking, who are those people that have dropped off?
Yeah,
really interesting.
No, for us also. So a focus next year with the new committee, we said really focus on membership and retaining of members. So we said we had a good strategy meeting, so good activity there. And just also a question there, because we went through that reconciling and through those changes in operational management over the last years, so we can have a new refocus. How is PIMS going under the new management and support?
It seems to be good. We've got Alistair's online. He could probably tell us. How's Trio Tech going, Alistair?
Oh, they're pretty much on the ball. They've fixed a few smaller problems. We did have the big problem earlier, which you would have noticed with the payment gateway, which was ANZ changing the payment gateway. So that was all a big panic when we found it wasn't working. But Triotech couldn't. There's a lot of administration involved because Triotech weren't allowed to talk to the bank, and
yeah,
so it had to go right round and back again through the whole system with ANZ. So
yeah. I think that one just happened because an email went missing, though, didn't it, right at the start? And someone should have actioned it a little while ago.
Yeah, well, I don't know where the email went, but whether it would have worked.
It sounds like ANZ to me.
Yeah, well, that is a problem with ANZ. It's not the first time they've changed it with barely any notification.
Yeah. How's everything else going with them, Alistair? You're finding them good to work with and quite quick at doing the changes?
Yeah. They're obviously we have to prioritise a bit because there's some things that are either more urgent or more important.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're pretty good, pretty much on the ball. The one thing I will say though is we need to do a lot more training.
Okay.
So if anyone's got an admin that isn't 100% sure, or you're getting problems with PIMS, it might be worth asking me or Dana for a training session.
Yeah.
No, I definitely probably will be in touch once, Alistair, then with you or Dana to understand where that future is, because we have to start looking what we're going to do with our website, or that we're going to be better integrated back into the platform, yes or no?
Yeah,
but
you might as well be, Kit. If you come back into the platform for PIMS, all on the same thing, it means that when we update something, it gets updated on your side. You don't need to
exactly. So I think previous committees made different decisions, and I think we just have to re-look at that again.
Yeah. So when I was at Waikato, we spent a lot of money doing the new website, and I did a lot of the not the design in it, but a lot of the written all the written pages, what was going on every page, that type of thing. And I think at the time it cost us $6,500 or something, and we'd hoped that it would increase our membership by like 1,000, and it didn't increase it by one. Not one. Not one. So it's not worth spending the money doing your own website. In saying that, what we will we need to get Triotech bedded down, but what we will look at doing is reskinning the PIMS system. So when we did that big project on working out an alternative to PIMS was the best one that we could find. There was nothing else that compared to it that could do everything we wanted to. Therefore, we can just reskin the front of the website, so we can change all the pages so it looks completely different. But there's no point getting Triotech to do that until they know how the system works on the other side of things first. So, but it will be a project we'll be looking at through the Federation.
Yeah, one thing I have noticed, being on the other end of things, is that some of the problems with PIMS are actually a problem with either the way the association set it up or the way it's actually being used. They're not getting the right results out of it because they're not putting the right inputs in.
Yeah. Right, we're dead on 8 o'clock now, folks. So I'll let everyone go. Thank you for your time tonight. And name suppression, I've had quite a few people come through with name suppressions, the Tenancy Tribunal hearings that have name suppression. If you know of any more, let me know. There's 4 of them that are severely the tenant's fault for damage to houses, missing rent, that type of thing, and they've been given name suppression and we don't know why, and there's no family violence or anything like that. But I need some more just so I can go to HUD and say this isn't right. Like, there's no way these people should have name suppression. And I was thinking about actually getting the Bankers Association to help us, because if we don't pay our rent, the bank doesn't get the money for the mortgage, and therefore they're the ones that actually, not ultimately suffering, but they will be the, down the end of the track sort of thing. So I'm trying to get them on board to help us even put some sort of legislation in that we can get that changed. So that name suppression for someone who is guilty, we know their names. Perfect. All right, everyone. So enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.